Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Halim wa salim bikum. Ikwanina watina. Inani ote subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amtanani wa shukri. Thank you, my dear brothers and sisters. This is relatively short notice. I have been pondering this issue for a while, and I've had a lot of technical difficulties, and I'm not sure because it looked like the picture on my end is even foggy. I don't know what's going on. I got to check with StreamYard again to see what's happening with it. But I wanted to touch on this particular subject because it's a subject that, how can I say, it's very deep in the sense that we have talking about Islamic religion. We talk about the language that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala revealed to our Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. And we're talking about the language that was handed down to whoever the prophet was at the time of the old kingdom. Those following understand what I'm talking about in ancient Egypt. And the system, language system, writing system, Mdw Ntr is what it's called. So we found that there's a correlation between these two languages, and I'll get into that. And here I'm giving you some speculation because I do not know the answer to this. Allah alam, He knows all things. But there's some circumstances and there's things that show a correlation. But what it has done for me in this situation, as I've looked into this, is that it verifies to me that there is a supreme being. See, and that this supreme being, this sultan, if you will, is governing this earth. And I also know that he spoke to our ancient ancestors of Kemt. And he gave them language, he gave them a writing system, and he gave our ancient ancestors who were black the knowledge of sciences and even his name. In Islam, we have 99 names. Our ancient brothers had some names, but the most authentic name and the strongest name was Ra. And I'll get into that. Okay, check here and see who we are. How you doing, my dear brother Jim Bob? How you doing, my dear brother? Thank you for showing up today. Appreciate that very much. Thank you very much, my dear brother. Okay, let me get into, I'm sorry, excuse me here. I got a lot of technical problems here, that's for sure. A lot of technical problems. Any of us who have studied the Quran and read it know there's some wording that just it's very difficult to quite understand. And you try to do research, no one seemed to have an answer for it. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. This is a system that here we go. Here, where you have what is called disjointed letters. There's a word for it in Arabic. I won't have to get into that. This is a very deep science. And but as you see something here, you notice this is Arabic. This is what's presented in the Quran. Quranic Arabic. And you see here the disjointed letters, like the first line, Alif, Lam, Mim. This is how you would say this when you read off in the Quran. When you read the translations, you will never find any translation for any of these letters that you see here. See, and so there's a reason for this. Because they say this is the language, these are wording that Subhanahu wa ta'ala actually knows. But if you notice something, brothers and sisters, this is very remnant of what? Mdw Ntr. When you see the written, the translations of the hieroglyphics is very similar to this. And we also know now that there's an ancient Quranic Arabic that our brothers who came across to Arabia, as we understand it today, Jazira Arab, as we stand today, spoke a language and very similar to that of Mdw Ntr. And I'll get more into this as we go. But if you see the lettering here, those who do not speak Arabic, I know, please bear with me on this. This is, again, the language that Subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. You do not find this type of language. It was so mind-boggling to many of the Sahaba. They themselves, for generations, the Sahaba and then the next generation, generations after them, and all the scholars of old have been at wits trying to understand what this is. Alif, Lam, Mim. Then you see the third, Alif, Lam, Ma, Sad. Then you see Alif, Lam, Ra. Okay, you see that. Now, Ra, brothers and sisters. Ra. Interesting, isn't it? The Sufi scholars of old have said that there's a correlation in this, and they gave number systems, which I do not know much about. I read on it. I have some scholars say that they don't go by this, but we know that Ra is the 10th letter in the alphabet, we know, of Arabic. We know that. And Ra it has a significance. Now, in Mdw Ntr, Ra also has a significance. Ra means what? Means the supreme being who created what? The sun. He created the moon. He created the earth. And he created the universe. Let me check here and see what our brothers have what to say here. We have our brother here. How you doing? What is your opinion on the Moorish Science Temple Quran teacher? I found very interesting that I have unlearned. Well, my dear brother, today I'm not going to talk about any other group because this is not discussion for this. I talked about the Moorish Temple. I had discussions with some of the brothers from there. I won't discuss that today because I found it's very interesting, but I am unlearned on the subject. Yes, this is a difficult subject. It's a very difficult subject because it gets into, again, as you heard me say for weeks, linguistics. Because why? Linguistics is one thing that all of our haters, all the racists who have tried in the past to take Africa from us and move it into Europe. When they couldn't move it into Europe, they tried to move it into the Middle East, into the Asia. See, but the linguistics, brothers and sisters, trumps them every time. So my opinion of them, I talked about them before. I won't talk about them today. It's not the time for that. I found it very interesting, but I'm learning on the topic, on the subject. Yes, it's very interesting. And you have to have some linguistics behind it. You have to be able to speak the Arabic language. That's definitely for sure. This looks, yes, it does. Yes, it does, because it's borrowed from again, Our brothers from Kempt, if you remember the map, if you look at a map of Africa and so-called Jazira Arab, right? It was connected until the Suez Canal was built. Then they disconnected Jazira Arab from Africa. So they traveled across. And if anyone understands what's going on with the Red Sea, there's certain times of the year where the tide is very low that you can actually cross it at one time. Certain seasons, the water was at a level that you could cross. But then when the season changed, then this whole region, the water filled. Again, talk about Moses. Remember that there's a contention about that situation, but I won't get into that. But remember when they crossed over into the, as we understand today, as Jazira Arab. And so getting back to this, here the language. Again, if you look at the fourth word, again, I know it's kind of hard for those who don't speak Arabic. Over here to your left, as you go left, 1, 2, 3, 4, you see Alif, Lam, Ra. Ra is a contention here, brothers and sisters. Ra. Yes. Because it's a significance, again, in Islam. I'll get into that. It's a significance with our ancient religious brothers of Kempt as well. And this is what is so fascinating about this. For years, I have heard people talk a lot of times about the connection between Egypt, and they said, well, the Muslims or Prophet Muhammad, he got everything from Egypt. This is not the case. They were on the right track in some instances, but they did not have the linguistics behind them for them to understand what they were saying. Because if they understood the linguistics, then they would understand this more. What they have in common is that Subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Prophet ﷺ, and he gave them a Quranic Arabic. In the Quranic Arabic are these letters here. These letters here are very remnant to what? The Mdw Ntr that's in Kempt. That our brothers, it was revealed to our brothers, which means the language of God. Mdw Ntr means the language of God. Of Ra or Allah, Yahweh, anything, any name that you want to call him. See, so again, Ra is a big factor inside Islam. So now, brothers and sisters, we get into this part where we ask the question, is Islam and Mdw Ntr connected in the sense? No, it is not. In the sense of religion, no, because let me explain something to you. You know, the Muslims believe, and this is what was handed down. When the Prophet Muhammad received his message, it was over for everything else. If you believed in the ancient belief system of Kempt, if you believed in Judaism, if you believed in any other religion, it was now pushed aside. It's now vacated. Islam must be worshipped. And when you look at linguistics, as you heard me say, even the Sahaba, they spoke perfect Arabic. Arabic very well, and writing it very well. But when the Quranic Arabic was revealed, they had a difficult time understanding it. That's right, brothers and sisters. And now you can see why. Because again, here is, I know it's a small print, we have a lot of chapters in the Quran that has the Mdw Ntr at the beginning. And you will never find a translation for it. That's right, brothers and sisters. You won't find a translation for it. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Here is Surah 91, Al-Shams. Interesting, isn't it? The sun. Now, many who are distractors will say, oh, you see, the Muslims took this from the Kemetic religious belief. No, it's not the case. Here, this particular surah is so powerful. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has gotten many different oaths in it. But I want to show you something, the connection I was talking about, because the language that was revealed and what Subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to get you and me to understand his power and his grace. Look at number 5. Number 5 here. It says, the sky and he who constructed it. Al-Shams is the sun. Now, who constructed it? Subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does Ra mean and Mdw? It means the one who what? Made it. The one who what? Constructed it. That's right. The one who guides it. The one who makes it function. Here, Subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet ﷺ the same thing. He's trying to tell him, he said, this is the sun. And the sun I govern. I govern the universe and the earth. So here, this verse 5 here, and by the sky and he who constructed it. This is Ra in Mdw, in their belief system. Because Ra means the same thing. So Subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to get those brothers 5,000 years ago to understand his power, to understand that it's him who governs the universe. It's him who made the sun. It's him who guides the sun. It's him who constructed the sun. It's him who's made the moon. It's him who made the universe. It's him who gives you light and day. Because you think about something. Those who don't believe in anything, you ask these persons, who is controlling the universe that brings us the sunlight and that brings the darkness? Someone has to be doing this. See, so here Subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining deeply in this is the Surah 91, Al-Shams. This is what's confusing to a lot of people because they do not understand this. And if you look at number 1, it says, by the sun and its brightness. Number 2, and by the moon when it follows it. Number 3, and by the day when it displays it. And by the night when it covers it. And by the sky and he who constructed it. You see the rhyme and riddle, the rhyme in this. Even in the English language, it's a rhyme. If you read it in the Arabic, it's even more beautiful. So again, brothers and sisters, this connection is through linguistics that Subhanahu wa ta'ala shed light on this mystery language. And you remember what I said? I said that not Islam, but the Quran was the last of Subhanahu wa ta'ala's mysteries. And many of the mysteries are solved in the Quran. And this is a mystery to many here because we have lettering and so forth that they could not. Even our scholars of old didn't understand it. And they talked about that. The Prophet ﷺ, I cannot find any evidence. If somebody finds evidence from a Sahih Hadith, meaning authentic Hadith, that says that he translated where is that here? He translated the disjointed letters that begin at many of the surahs. I want to see it because I haven't found it. I've been looking for it. And many of them have tried to understand this and try to figure it out. What does it mean? If you see on the second line, you see to your right, you remember it says Alif, Lam, Ra, right? Next to it is a very interesting, look how disjointed it is. You see, this is K, H in English, H, Y, and Sa. Now, this is the surah talking about who? The prophet Jesus, as you know him in English, and the mother and his mother Mary. We know him as Isa alayhi salatu salam. We know his mother as Maryam. This chapter brings many people to tears, but looks what it started. It started off with hieroglyphics. It started off with hieroglyphics that nobody knows what the meaning means. Kaf, ha, ya, ain, sad. This is how it's pronounced at the beginning of this surah, Surah Maryam, the mother of Jesus, alayhi salam. This here, as you see on the second line, you see the first letter to your right, Alif Lam Ra, and then you see the next is Law. That is beginning of that particular surah. It's very, very interesting, brothers and sisters. Now, let's get into something else. We got, let me see what our brothers have to say here. Okay. Therefore, it does not matter what name we use for the Creator as long as it refers to the same Supreme One that our ancestors also praised. Yes, my dear brother, this is true. It doesn't matter. If you are a Muslim, then of course you use the name that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has revealed. See, so that's it. But those who are not Muslims, you use the name, the proper name that glorifies Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. You don't give a name that is derogatory, or it is not meaningful. This is why Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, we know in our, in Islam, we have 99 names for him, because we revere him, we love him, and we fear him. So he has many, many different names. See, here we have a contention of Ra, which is very important here, Ra, which is R. And as I will start to cover this here, perhaps this is why our Muslim and Hebrew brothers never fought at Andalus, because they understood the message so many missed today. Well, yeah, Andalus is a different topic. I covered that in a I don't know how many series. I covered Andalus in depth. And this wasn't a fight between the Muslims and the Hebrews. This is the fight between the Muslims and the disbelievers. And then there's other issues in between that, but it had nothing to do with the Hebrews. See, and it had nothing to do with their differences and so forth. So that had nothing to do with that. But I covered that already in many different. I gave about 4. I think it's maybe about 4 episodes on this. I'm not sure. But anyway, brothers and sisters, getting back to this. Here is some of the tafsir. You notice something, salvation is due to purification of the carnal soul. When you talk about this, the Al-Shams, this is what we're talking about. This is a powerful surah, because here we talk about the purification of the soul. What was our Kemetic brothers interested in? It was in the hereafter, wasn't it? The hereafter they were interested in, and the purification of the soul, which they call what? Ka and Ba. I'm leading you to this. Please bear with me. I'm leading you to something. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave this information to our ancestral brothers in Kemet. So therefore, they developed the Ka. Remember, it means the spirit, and those that's prevalent on the earth. The Ba is the eternal soul that rests in the heavens. And so our ancient brothers tried to do everything they can to get the pressure of Ra, Allah, so that way their spirit, when it dies, will meet up with their soul in the heavens. This is what they believe. And also to accomplish that, they had created 42 negative confessions that they recite in order to bring the Ka, which is your spirit, bring it to Ba, which is your soul. Ruh is what we call this in Arabic language. We call nafs is what we call this in the spirit, basically the inner workings of the heart and its doings. We call this now you guys say I'm going back from Mdw Ntr to Arabic, excuse me. come on now, nefs, excuse me, for the spirit of nefs, for the soul, we call this ruh. This is what we call this in Arabic. So this is, again, brothers and sisters, talking about a deep issue here. And I don't want anybody getting confused to say, I'm trying to say that Islam borrowed from the Mdw Ntr. It did not. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a message to the prophet, whoever received the message in ancient Kemt, and the message that the Prophet ﷺ, he received part of the language of the Mdw Ntr because it's in the Quran, and you can't dispute that. That's why our scholars today, because they do not have the linguistic ability to understand that there was a language that was spoken before the Prophet ﷺ received his message, and they forgot their ancient Arabic language. And I'll get more into that, brothers and sisters, as we go on here. I'm trying to get you to a point. But here we're talking about Subhanahu wa ta'ala in this is Surah 91, Al-Shams, the sun. And this is why many accuse us of sun worshiping. We're not saying that. Subhanahu wa ta'ala here is giving you a guidance to explain. And if you see above there's the 10 verses here, again, by the sun and his brightness. He's trying to get you to understand his significance and what this means for you. These are oaths, the oaths that you taking, that you believe in him, that you believe in his power, and that you have to have reverence for what he has, what he does for us. He gives us light. He gives us warmth. He gives us sleep to repair ourselves. He puts food. He puts rivers. He puts beauty so we can understand his majestic power and beauty that he has laid out. What's more beautiful than the earth is the universe. If you see some of the pictures that they have started to bring back, you see colors that are mind-boggling. Subhanahu wa ta'ala created that. See, so, and our brother said here, perhaps this one, okay, we covered that, and it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, we're caught up there. And so now, brothers and sisters, we have this background I'm giving you now. This may be mundane for a lot of people, and I'm sorry that you may feel this way, but to me it gives me a verification that is Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also gives me a verification that Subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to our African ancestors and gave them part of this. It gave them this language, Mdw Ntr, because it's found its way in the Quran. So if it found its way in the Quran, that means it had to be true what Subhanahu wa ta'ala was speaking to the prophet who got the message in ancient Kemt. Because if it's not the case, then how can we have the same language in the beginning of many of the surahs with Mdw Ntr? If it's not true, again, brothers and sisters, I've been building you up each week to give you something, give you in depth. As you heard me say many times, linguistics. If you want to understand Africa, you have to understand the linguistic concepts of Africa. You have to understand the ethnic concept of Africa. Why? Because Africa was the first people on this earth. So you have to understand that. And language is important. Linguistics is a key to understanding. Now we're starting to see people start talking about the Quran, and they start talking about, the Quran is this and that. Yes, but they did not have, if they understood the linguistics behind this, then they could be able to speak intelligently, but they could not, because they did not understand the Mdw Ntr. If they understood this, and they would be able to draw the nexus, meaning Subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to the prophet who gave, or many of the what you call them, clergy, he gave them information, and wrote it down, and they even called this language the language of God. See, so brothers and sisters, this is very, very profound. Now, I'm gonna give you this. Let me get back here to. We got another brother here. How you doing, my dear brother? Bob. Thank you very much, brother. You know your name has significance. If you've been following me for the last couple of weeks, I hope you have. I'm going to get more into your name, the last name Ba, here in a minute, to give you some significance behind it, my dear brother. Thank you very much. I've been well. And I'm hoping everybody and all families, those who are joining in the future, I hope that you guys are doing well and that you're staying safe. I also thought the same, that these sacred letters must have some relationship with ancient Kemetic words of language. Yes, you know, if all of us have who read the Quran, how mystical and how beautiful it is, how majestic it is, how haunting it is, and you hear, especially when you begin to read it and you begin to understand it, why do you think that even the disbelievers who listen to it many times are brought to tears? Because this is the language that Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the prophet and gave to the Muslims. Even though the Arabian people, the Arabic people who were there spoke Arabic, but they didn't speak this. So this is what I'm talking about. See, they didn't speak this. So this is something, again, brothers and sisters, that is very interesting. And here we got the surah on Shams. If you look at the beautiful manuscript in the way it's written, the Subhanahu wa ta'ala's language that he gave us, it mirrors the hieroglyphics in some ways, but we don't have the animals and the other type of characters that they use. But you have the same melodic tune to it. See, so this is, again, brothers and sisters, a situation that you should be made to understand. Now, let me get into the thing about Ra again. Brothers and sisters, using the first name Ra. Remember, Ra means the one who has constructed it, meaning the sun, the one who's made it. There's many translations, but Ra does not mean the worship of the sun. That's a lie. Because if you read the hymn to Ra, it's Tawheed, meaning the oneness of God. This is what trumps the racists who are now coming forward, for the last 100 years or more, talking about that they were worshiping the sun. It was not worship, because Ra means what he's constructed, mean who constructed the sun. Yes, in the hieroglyphics, the sun is drawn to be a representative of Ra, the persons who took the name. And I give you examples here, like using Ka and Ba. I'll get into our brother who's got the name Ba. Using Ka and Ba in a name it means the purification of the carnal soul. Okay? Now, you heard me say again, Ka and Ba. This is prevalent because Shams, Al-Shams, in Surah 91 talks about the same issue, the purification of the carnal soul. Ka and Ba. So now, our ancient ancestors took the name Ra. They would say, example, Ra Yahya, Ra Muhammad. Now, you see my last name, Shabaka. I have my great ancestor by the name Shabaka. Look at his name. If you look at it from the hieroglyphics and from the ancient Arabic, which I'll show you something to prove what I'm talking about. Ra Shabaka. But in Mdw Ntr, it's Shabaka. When I learned that, it blew me away. Because Shabaka. What is Ba and Ka? What is that again? It talks about the unification of the carnal soul, right? And Subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we must purify this in order to enter, with his permission, Jannah, or heaven, if you want to call that. Now, the sacred places of worship, purifying. This is something, brothers and sisters, again, the connection. I start to do research on this. Why does Subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah 3, verse 96, again, Surah 3, verse 96, Subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't use the word Mecca. He called it Baka. Here we go again. Ba and Ka. This is what he used in the Quran. Later on, it was changed to Mecca. But even though, Mecca. Now, what is the most holy spot, as far as I'm concerned? Because all the prophets went around it. In the Quran, it's called what? The Kaaba. Again, brothers and sisters, Kaaba. Think about this now. Okay, think about this. Think about this now. If you want to purify what place do you go to purify your spirit and your spirit that you have and the soul that will be coming to you, if it's good or bad? I already talked about that. We won't get into that. We're talking about the righteous that Subhanahu wa ta'ala allows. He allows the unification of the Ka and Ba. He calls the place Baka sacred in Arabia. He calls the Kaaba, we understand, is sacred. Look at the name, Kaaba. Kaaba. Now, Surah 91 Al-Shams. The first attribute to Allah is what? Ar-Rahman. The second attribute to Allah is what? Ar-Rahim. Here you go again, Ra. There's a surah, also bear the name of Rad. Rad deals with what? In the heavens, the thunder, right? Again, Ra is involved. So one of the names of Subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ra. But in the names of that's been, I guess you would call the last of the great mysteries, the 99 names, you don't find his name Ra per se, but you find remnants of his prefixes, again, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Sur-Rad. We find his remnants of him talking about this issue about his power, Ra, meaning those who has constructed it, meaning who's given us the daylight, who's given us the darkness, who gives us the moon, who gives us the earth, who gives us the universe. This is Ra in ancient Mdw Ntr. And this is the name, and this is attribute, named Ra. Then he tells you in the Quran, Surah 3, verse 96, he calls one of the sacred places, again, Baka. And he calls the place of where you can purify this union, he called it Kaaba. Kaaba, as we said today. How interesting is that, isn't it? See, so I'm giving you this, brothers and sisters, so that you can have an understanding on what's being said. Yes, correct. Muslims have elements from ancient Black Africa and ancient Kemetic understandings. Not etc. Because there are countless number of Black African and Kemetic prophets, etc. Yes, I forgot the number that the Prophet ﷺ gave us. I think he said it was, I can't remember what the number he said. Shoot, I can't remember now. Someone maybe don't misunderstand. He said 2,000. I forgot now. You know, it's been so long. I can't remember the number that he said. Subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets to all mankind. So that means everybody had a prophet. Everybody had a prophet who came to them with Tawheed. So we know this to be the fact. And what is interesting here is that we have Mdw Ntr, who has been, who many now, because since we're taking the Tuba out of it, because he was said it was his, we now removed him out of it, out of revenge. He's now, after he was glorifying Kempt, after we glorified the Mdw Ntr, then after we threw him out of it, meaning we said you are a liar, it's not yours. Now he begins to come back and say that it's a gutterish, it's a cult, it's this and that. Wait a minute, brothers and sisters. If this is the case, as he say, why in the Quran, Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us these things, and he gave us these he gave these letters. This is the tradition of Mdw Ntr. He put this at many of the surahs of the Quran at the beginning. And that's why when you look at the translations of like here, surah, look, you notice something. Look at, this is Surah Miriam, which is, what number is Surah Miriam? 17. I'm trying to remember, brothers and sisters, please. I can't remember what number it is, but it's Surah Miriam, which is a 15. I can't remember which number it is. But look at the first verse. Ka, ha, ya, ain, sad. Look at it in the English translation of it. But do you see wording behind it, what it means? No. But look at the second verse. It tells you exactly what it means in translation in English. But where's the English translation for ka, ha, ya, ain, sad? There's none. Because no one knows what it means except Subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he put this letter, these type of lettering, which is a name for this in Arabic, and there's a study of this as well. And so this is what I'm getting at, brothers and sisters, to show you that this is a language that Subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. It's a language that has made some of its way in the Quran. And so when you have distractors who tell you things about the Quran and say things, now you should be able to talk about the issues. No, the Prophet ﷺ didn't go to Egypt and then look up the book of the dead, which we call the fourth coming by day and night. He didn't do that and then took from that. Because if you look at the Quran, it's totally different. It's totally different from the Bible as well. But he did, Subhanahu wa ta'ala did speak to him in this language. Now, I'm going to give you something. Okay, this is here again about, if those who read Arabic, you see my proof to show you that Subhanahu wa ta'ala here talks about here Baka. He calls it Baka. Did you see it? Baka is what he calls today, as we understand it, as Mecca. But again, Baka, and it's a blessed sanctuary. Again, brother, sister, Baka. We've been talking about that. We have today the who carries this designation of Ba, the Fulani people. This is named, we still have today. We still have the last name. We still have people who have prefixes and suffixes in the name of Ka. Because when we took it, we can get, and we're in the first of the dynasties. You heard me talk about this, about a week ago. So I talked about the Ka and Ba. And we took it and we ran with it, just like we did Islam. We took this religion at that time and we had Kara, which is part of this. Kara is a place of what? The burial of the spirit. Kara. Kara. Interesting, isn't it, brothers and sisters? Huh? Let me write this to you again. Kara. Okay? Kara. But it equals actually Ka and Ra. Okay. Let me get this to you guys here so you can see this. Kara is burial of the spirit. Okay? Kara. Look at this again, brothers and sisters. I'm hoping that you guys understand. I'm giving you the inner workings of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah alam. I'm only saying what I think, because I do not have the answer. But I'm finding this thing to the point I will be honest with you. When I start to read this and start to find things out, it brought me to tears. I do not know why, but it did. Because it's like I found something that was missing, and something that really strengthened my faith even more. Because Subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Prophet, what he said that our faith goes up and down. See, I found something now that really tells me that there is a supreme being. And he's been talking and been giving us the message for thousands of years. Now we're starting to find out that our ancient brothers in Kempt had this message as well. And of course, they deviated from it. You know what has happened. I've talked about some of this. I'll get more into it in other episodes. But I want to give you this again. Kara. Kara is the burial when you die. You go and you're buried. This is the Kara. Look at it. Look at it, brothers and sisters. If you look at this Ka, Ra. Because again, the spirit is Ka. Ra is who? Subhanahu wa ta'ala. See? Subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we have Fulani people today that still have this name Kara. And they still have the name Ba. And they still have the name Ka. This is what I was talking about. So I'm hoping, brothers and sisters, that you are seeing, getting this, and understanding this. And let me start to read this, and because we still got time here. I want to read some of the notes here that I got. I told you this is, to me, very profound, because it gives me something of subhanahu wa ta'ala, something that I didn't really understand and know. And I got a better understanding of subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's through another avenue, because as I start to get deeper into our brothers encamped, I start seeing things, start feeling things. I didn't understand why I started having these feelings. When I begin to find out, and I saw, and me and my wife talked about this issue, I saw in the Quran, and I always read it, and these names, Alif, Lam, Ra, and when I used to read that, it used to give me some, I can't explain it. And I never could find the definition for it. But when I begin to study the Mdw Ntr, I start to find a correlation between these disjointed letters that we found in the first verse of many surahs in the Quran. So it gave me more of a deeper thought that subhanahu wa ta'ala is taught to our ancient brothers for centuries. And he has tried to help develop us so we can develop our spirit, which we know as the nefs in Arabic, and then the carnal soul, which you believe that rest, okay? The carnal soul, we know as Ba in Mdw Ntr. And so now we know that subhanahu wa ta'ala has put places on this earth where you can purify that, where you can get that angle to help purify and bring this union together at the time of death. Where? By your worship and your what? And your knowledge and your oaths and so forth and so on that I was talking about in Surah Shams. But you go to sacred places of worship to purify the Ka and Ba. Subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you come to what? Mecca. But he calls it in the Quran Baka. Then he says this is the area, Baka. But also, and now in Arabic, they've changed the meaning. They've given it meaning, a place of gathering and so forth and so on. And they changed it to Mecca. But the hieroglyphics, they did not have that. It had to have another meaning because subhanahu wa ta'ala called it Baka. Now, the place where all the prophets went to, again, for us to come to purify what our spirit and our soul. He called it the Kaaba. Here we go again, Kaaba. And to worship him as we understand that, and we see his attributes, we have again a prefix or some parts of the name where we have Ra in it, like the first attribute, Ar-Rahman. The second attribute, Ar-Rahim. Again, Ra is in it. Now, someone will say, well, okay, Yahya, I hear what you're saying here. I hear you. But you're saying that it's connected to, you saying that the ancient Arabic language is connected to the Mdw Ntr. Brothers and sisters, here it is here. Why our scholars have a hard time trying to understand why these letterings, because they do not have the linguistics behind them. There's no fault to them. This means nothing. Am I criticizing them? No, I'm not doing that. Because you have to follow the scholarship, because they are guided men, not all scholars. You know what I'm talking about. But you got to look at something, brothers and sisters. The old Southern Arabia root from Mecca means temple. But look at the hieroglyphics that was written for Mecca, for Baka. M-K-R-B. They did not have the vowels. wait a minute, you know, vowels. I always had trouble even when I was a little kid. I forgot how we just make us rhyme that the vowels. A, E, I, O, U. I can't. Boy, I can't remember now. But this is the word. This is how it was written in the ancient Arabic, MKRB. That means Baka or Mecca. That's right, brothers and sisters. And where this language is found is in the southern Arabian Peninsula, which is Jazir Arab. We're talking about probably in the Yemen region. If you look at the map, ancient map of Africa, Africa was adjoining to where? To Arabia before the Suez Canal. When Suez Canal was built, it blocked that connection. It opened that connection and separated it. But before it was connected, and we had a Red Sea, as you heard me talk about it. If anyone did any study on this, at certain times of the year, the tide is very low. You can actually cross it to go into Arabia. That was then, not now. But but other certain times of the season, then that area was filled. Okay. See, so if you look at Moses alayhi salam and what happened to him, you see he crossed this area, right? Subhanahu wa ta'ala parted the sea for him so he can cross. And then he collected the sea and killed Ramses. I forget which Ramses. Ramses II. I'm trying to remember now which Ramses it was, but it was about 10 Ramses. But I won't get into that to another time. But I wanted to give you this root word. Now you guys can see what I'm talking about. This is Neher, brothers and sisters. So our African brothers were their Arabs originally. They spoke this language and they wrote it and they carried it over into Arabia. And of course it changed because when people go away from a base, then they're going to change the language. Remember, like I told you, when our African ancestors brought to slavery into the South, the black people start to speak with the South, and still our brothers from the South still speak with this accent. But when our families begin to move to California, to New York, we developed our own accent. Remember, you heard me talk about for weeks. The brothers of California, when a brother from Alabama will come from Mississippi or Georgia, he has his accent. We make fun of him in a sense because we listen to the brothers say, hey, man, you know what's happening here? You know, you don't speak like us. It's English, but he has a dialect. And then the brothers in New York speak different than both of us. You see? So this is what happened. So when you're home base, and you begin to break away from it, begin to develop your own languages and even DNA, as we understand that today. There's a drift and the DNA changes to a degree. See? So I want to cover something for you, brothers and sisters, here, talking about this real quickly. Ra. The Quran is filled with disjointed letters at the beginning of the surahs. And the Sufi teachings all represents the return of all things to one and only God. Because Ra, again, in ancient times, Ra is like Allah, meaning in a sense, name. And if you say, no, that's paganism, Yahya, what are you talking about? It's not paganism, brothers and sisters. Okay, it's not paganism. Excuse me, you hear the van in the background. Please forgive me for that, it's very loud. But Ra has significance because it's rooted in some of the Quranic Arabic. To make it a point, the Prophet, many Sahaba go to him and they could not understand. They had a hard time. They speak Arabic. But when the Quranic Arabic was revealed, they said, there's things I don't understand about it. Our Prophet sent our most gifted Sahaba, the companions, to where? To black African, Arabic tribes in the desert who spoke this language or had had the basis of it so they could get a better understanding. That's right. See? So the Prophet knew that these must have came across from camp into Arabia, and he carried on this type of language because they had a better understanding of it. So when they came to Islam and they began to read the Quran, it was easy for them. Why? Because they already knew the basis of the Quranic Arabic. See, this is what we're talking about here. In the Sufi teachings, the R represents, now we're not talking about bid'ah, okay? We're not talking about Arabic. We're not talking about the innovators, the Sufi innovators and the fanatics. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about some who had deep connections with Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so forth and so on. The R represents the return of all things to one God. It shows that Allah gave righteous men, learned men, who he chose to learn some aspects of who he was. So he gave the hymn of Ra. He gave this to our brothers in ancient times to describe him. He said he's the only one. He's not begotten. He's not created. It's a whole list of things that in him Ra that Subhanahu wa ta'ala told who he was. When Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salam, okay, was revealed to him, the name given for Subhanahu wa ta'ala was Allah, but he also has 99 names as well. See? So there's the connection. Now, the Mdw Ntr was the first language given to our righteous Kemetic ancestors. Mdw Ntr means the language of Allah or Ra. Okay? Ra was the name given by Allah to our ancestral brothers. This is the mystical symbol in this word. Ra is mystical. It's even in the when you read the first of Bismillah or Rahman or Rahim, Rahim. There we go. Rahman, Rahim. You get my drift, brothers and sisters? Subhanahu wa ta'ala told our ancient brothers that Ra was the name given by Allah to ancestral brothers, and this is a mythical symbol. Ra is all-encompassing, dealing in the realm of the unknown. We don't know who Subhanahu wa ta'ala is, meaning we don't, there's many scholars talk about if he's got hands and if he's asleep. I never want to touch that because I don't know where they get the proof that he's doing any of that. But we all know he is encompassing. Allah told our ancestors who he was, his power, his realm, that we can see what we cannot see. We see his power in front of us, but we cannot see him. That's what they're talking about. Meaning we see the heavens. Yes, we see the heavens above us, but not what's in it. We see the stars, we see some things, but there's a lot of stuff that's in the universe we cannot see. But brothers and sisters, Subhanahu wa ta'ala did give some of our brothers in the old kingdom the knowledge of the universe. You heard me talk about this. He gave them 2 solar systems. We know one today as Orion and the other one as Sirius. Remember, it's close to the sun and its rotation. That rotation helped our brothers to develop a calendar. Where did they get that knowledge from? They didn't have spaceships to go there. They didn't have telescopes. And remember, I gave you this answer last week about the issue of the 4th dynasty. The 4th dynasty gave us all of this majestic pyramids. And we looked inside, we found celestial meanings and about directions toward the sun. That was right on cue. Modern science has proven that what they had 5,000 years ago was right on mark. See? So now we have this. And we were seeing something, and I'm hoping, brothers and sisters, that you do your research on this. And those who will take this out of context, you cannot. You should go back and listen to my tape again. Because this is not a game here. We're talking about something deep or profound. Anybody who has any heart, which we call in Mdw Ntr, with our ancestral brothers from the Hausa, the Fulani, the Mandinka, the Mende, the Bambara, the Bamun, the Fang, all the way across who came out of ancient Egypt. The heart was a big thing, to the point that we even took names. Like our brother today, his last name is Ba. Where did that Ba come from? They came from ancient Egypt, because our brothers were so religious and they were so focused on developing the spirit so it can meet the carnal soul in the heavens. See? That's why it's no joke. They were serious about that. And as Muslims are too. And our Prophet is too as well. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the directions. I'm giving you the precursors for you to understand that your ancestral brothers in camp received a language that's found its way in the Quran. Not meaning that there's that Prophet Muhammad went to camp. No, that the same Subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to our brothers in ancient camp 5,000 years ago, he also spoke to Prophet Muhammad. That's why I believe in Allah. That's why I believe in Subhanahu wa ta'ala. This to me gives me more deeper understanding about him than I ever had. By happenstance, I started looking at our ancestor brothers. I saw how meticulous they were about their nafs, meaning the spirit, how meticulous they were. To the point they even took names. The Muslims do the same thing. We take the name Abdullah. Ra means the devotion and worship of Allah. This is what Ra means. Now, Ra is all excuse me, I'm going too fast here, compassing. And it's dealing with the realm of unknown. Meaning we can see the heavens above what's not in it. The meaning of the universe, its purpose is still being talked about. No one has an absolute answer to or have mastered this infinite realm. Nobody can give, you can get speculation. Only Allah knows all about the universe. I'll give you why I say this. In recent times now, these scientists who think they're all compassing suddenly find under their nose a solar system that's very close to. Why did they even see this 100 years ago? They've been having telescopes so powerful they can see the sun, but yet Subhanahu wa ta'ala blocked these another solar system close to Earth. See, so they're not all encompassing. So that's why we don't have an answer. None of us. Yet I still gave Allah gave wise and righteous men of Kemp the limited knowledge of space in certain solar systems, and without seeing this realm through the naked eye, they had no way of knowing where Sirius solar system. You know, they didn't have no, and how did they know by measurements how close it was to the sun? How? Without any modern instruments, but they did have it. They have things they saw into the space, and they were given this by Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he gave them coordinates. This is what's fascinating. In many of the Giza pyramids, you find coordinates and dimensions of the pyramid that equals that of those two solar systems I talked about. Sirius or Orion is what they call it today. See, so, boy, I mean, to me, it's fascinating. And for me, it gives me deeper, profound love for Subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it also gives me a vindication how we as Black people have been vilified. We've been talked against. We even had our own history stolen by this enemy who has taken taken Egypt, as we call it today, Kempt, out of Africa and moved it into Norway or England or Ireland or Italy. But we know now it's not the case because we have linguistics here. The Europeans don't have nothing close to this. Yes, they borrowed when they came, yes, but Subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't speak to them. He spoke to us. That's important. And I'm giving you this proof now. And those who come late now, you come and review my video, and so you can get caught up to speed. Let me see what our brothers here, what brothers got to say here. Okay, excuse me here. Okay, thank you, my dear elder. Now I can understand and relate as to why most of our ancestors who had the name Ba were very spiritual. Yes. And saints, yes, like the Sulam, yes, Ahmed, yes, there you go. Yeah, right. You got it right, brother. You got it right. And even the name Bari is significance because again, if you look at Ba, there's Ba again. The carnal soul, Bari, meaning again, we called that in the Fulani dialect at that time, we called Bahri was actually Fari. Fari is the name in Mdw Ntr that means the pharaoh, means the king. We understand it in Fulani language as Bahri. And one of our greatest pharaohs was named Ka. And we have many pharaohs in the first three, as you heard me talk about last week. Many of the pharaohs from the first three dynasties had the suffix kara. Kara. Huh? Think about it. Kara. Our Fulani ancestors had this. And they're the only ones that kept these names that we still have today. Kara, we still find with Fulani people today. Ba, our brother here, we find today. We still find the name Ka, but in variations of Ka, but it's still there. See? And so this is very interesting, brothers and sisters. Very, very interesting, connecting us to this. If Harvard or Mdw was mandatory in all African schools, we wouldn't have any more issues. I think it would be also giving insights into Islamic knowledge. Yes, my dear brother, what you just surmised here is the damn truth. I have to say it like this. It's true. Every school that's here in Africa today, on this beautiful continent of ours, should be made to learn what happened in Kempt, especially those living in West Africa and East Africa in particular. Because when our ancestors left Kempt, they flooded West Africa and they became the West Africans. The Fulani, the Bambara, the Mandinka, the Kru people, the Mende people, the Wolof and Jolof, the Akan, the Ga, the Ewe, the Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, you go all the way down the line. All of them are ancient Egyptians. And I've proven that giving you the DNA. And now I'm giving you linguistics as well to prove that this is ours. And we should be made to understand the hieroglyphics and understand what happened in Kempt, and should be taught by the right ones, not by racists who will come in to our schools, which I hear they're doing that in Africa. We have racists coming out from from Europe. They're coming in teaching and taking, and our children have to wonder what's going on here. He's talking about Europe as though Egypt is in Europe. And so when our sons come to us and say, Daddy, I don't understand something. Mr. Jones, who came from England, who's teaching us about Egypt, he said that the people came from Europe. See? And he was talking about, he's trying to put Egypt in that. He said, but Dad, I look at the map, I see Egypt was in Africa. This is what I'm talking about. We should have African teachers teaching this to our students from Morocco all the way down South Africa. We should, because this will clear up a lot of stuff. Because I'm going to tell you something. We start to learn what our ancestors, brothers learned. It will lead you actually to the next level, which will be Islam. Because Islam, subhanahu wa ta'ala, talk about Islam saying that this is the final, this is it. And Prophet Muhammad is the last of the messengers. But he also gave you his magnificence, and he gave you codes why our scholars cannot understand. As you understand, Alif, Lam, Ra, there's Ra again. They didn't understand it because they did not have the linguistics behind it. They understand Ra. See? Okay? Or Rahman, or Rahim. They didn't understand the Ra. See? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brother. Thank you for showing up today. And hope that you review this and go over this again, my dear brother, because this is a very deep chapter talking about the connection between Quranic Arabic and Mdw Ntr. It is there. It is there. And I finished this here, these notes here. Yet and still, Allah gave wise, righteous men of Kempt the limited knowledge of space and certain solar systems without seeing the realm through naked eye. And he gave them coordinates of 2 solar systems in particular. Devout believers of Allah and Ra will characterize their faith in their name, meaning Ra Muhammad, Ra Yahya, Ra Ahmed. Whatever the name that you have, you put the name Ra, means your devotion to it. Your devotion to it. And then I gave, of course, the evidence about using raw. I gave you this segment here so you can get a better understanding of this of all of why Subhanahu wa Ta'ala did what he said. Again, we go back over that. Why did he say in the Quran, Baka? Baka. That's right, Baka. Why he say that? This is in Surah 3, verse 96. He talks about today we call Mecca. Funny, isn't it? Mecca, ka, right? You actually can use ka because some people spell Mecca with 2 Ks. And then the place where you can purify your spirit and soul and through worship is called what? Kaaba. Now, somebody think about this. One of the first attributes of Allah, his name, who he was, is Rahman. Second, Rahim. Thunder in the sky is called Rod. There's Ra again. So now, like I said, brothers and sisters, you guys have this good indication here. This is the surah, and using Ra, and then the you know, where's those names I'll put down here. Excuse me here, brothers and sisters. I'm trying to figure using Ra. Yeah, but where's the boy, that's funny. I had where's the other name? I had the names in there to show you like my name Shabaka. There it is. Okay, excuse me. If you look at the top here, it says using ka and ba, and the name means the purification. Now, my ancestor Shabaka. If you look at the Mdw Ntr written even in the ancient Arabic or ancient and the Mdw Ntr is Shah. I don't know what Shah actually means. I'm not sure what the Shah in my name means. I don't know if it's part of the ethnic group, because in the hieroglyphics, they say Shabaka came from Habasha, meaning Ethiopia. See, this is what they said. And again, like I said, I don't know, you know, but this is what is written in hieroglyphics. They label him, and I'll get into the names that they have for black people because they're black themselves. But it's like us. We have different names for black people from different regions. That doesn't mean one's black and the other's not. But I'm giving you this lesson talking about this and the names, because my name Shabaka. See, so again, we look at this, and we look at again the surah of Shams, which is 91. You read this surah 91. All you Muslims in particular, you read this surah because it's mandatory, and you memorize it because there's oaths that you must take to it. Now, we're not talking about making oath meaning that you worship the sun. No. If you look at verse 5, it tells you what you worship. But the other verses tell you that with Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's his glory, his magnificence, his power, he created the sun. He gave us the night. He gave us the night, and he gave us the daylight. See, so he's getting you to the point. Then he comes to number 5 to tell you that the sky and he who constructed it, meaning the sun, the sky, all of this, he created. He created this. See, it's him who, this is what Ra means in hieroglyphics. In the Mdw Ntr, Ra means the one who constructed it. It doesn't mean to worship the sun. So now you've got understanding, brothers and sisters, what we talk about. And there's the verses there of Shams, by the sun and by the brightness. And then you look at it, number 5, by, again, those, you know, who made it, who constructed it. And you see each one. It's a beautiful rhythmic when you begin to to read and learn Arabic and begin to recite this, it's beautiful. It has a rhyme to it. But this is also what Subhanahu wa ta'ala explained to our ancient brothers in Kemt, because he said, I'm Ra, and I'm the one who constructed the sun and the sky, and I gave you the universe, I gave you the earth, I gave you night and day. And this is where the Ra comes from. Now, our ancestral brothers then went back to deeper, because as we developed in the concept of the spirit and the carnal soul, we had a name for it. In Arabic today, in classical Arabic terms, we call nefs. And the carnal soul, we call ruh. This is what we call this in Arabic. In ancient times, it was called ka and ba. And you see here in the tafsir of Shams, the sun, in this verse, is the purification of the carnal soul. You guys see what I'm getting at? That Subhanahu wa ta'ala also told our ancient ancestors of Kemt about the carnal soul. At that time, the language they understood it was called Ba and Ka. And this is why you see our famous, our strongest brothers had the name Shah Ba Ka. Why we have Fulani brothers today in ancient times, they had the name Ba. And they also had the name Ka Ra, as you saw me when I put here. Ka Ra is the place where you bury the spirit. When you die, you go in the ground. They call it Ka Ra. Interesting. Ka and Ra. Ra is who? The one who built the sun, who constructed the sun and the universe and the sky. Ka is the spirit. So I'm hoping, brothers and sisters, you guys are starting to get this and understand this. And I go over this again. These letters you find in many surahs today, many of the surahs. Our scholars cannot translate what these mean. And still today, we don't know what it means. Even we don't have an indication, but we do know Ra, which is, if you look at the third from your right, going to your left, you see the first, second, third, and the fourth, you see Ra. There's an R there, well, it's, you can't read, those can't read Arabic. But that's Ra, is what we talk about. Alif, Lam, Ra. Then you see the next one over, you see Alif, Lam, Mim, Ra. All of this is Mdw that found its way in the Quran. Beautiful, brothers and sisters. Beautiful, beautiful. And our ancient ancestral brothers went to the Arabian Peninsula, we call Jazira Arab today, and they developed an old Arabic, because now they left Kemt. So now they developed the language. Baka and the ancient Arabian was MKRB. See, brothers and sisters, this is written in the Mdw Ntr style. So, brothers and sisters, I'm hoping today that you got something out of this, because as I did deep research on this, it really, really affected me a lot. And I start to look at it and I begin to ponder about this deep connection, because it's like I got closer to Subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like I also found out something, and I also helped to strengthen my faith, meaning because we're on this earth, our ancestral brothers dealt with this. Prophet Muhammad, he dealt with this, and you know by what he tells us in his sunnah about our purification. So they wrestled with this issue as we still wrestle with it today. It's the purification of the spirit and the soul. It was an issue 5,000 years ago. Our brothers wrote about it, and they call it Ka and Ba. Prophet Muhammad was given a language, Quranic Arabic. They call it nefs for ka, and ruh for ba, meaning the carnal soul. It's very, very interesting, brothers and sisters. Very, very interesting. And I'm hoping it is just as profound in you as well, especially when you start doing research. I've said this for weeks. I had a lot of people talk crazy to me about this issue, about the linguistics. They tried to denounce it. And I said, no problem. I want them to come to denounce this. I want them to explain to me how the Mdw Ntr was spoken, meaning the language of God, meaning the language of Ra, language of Allah. How did it find its way in the Quran? Because Subhanahu wa ta'ala said this, and we do not know the meanings of this. It's the language of Allah. We do not know the meaning. Why? Subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it, and it's the first verse in many of the I believe there's 29, I think it's 20, yes, 20, I can't remember now. I think it's 29 of the surahs have the first verse in it. They have this Mdw Ntr in it. We have an Arabic name for it. I won't have to get, because it's confusing to you. You don't speak Arabic. It doesn't make a difference if I pronounced it for you or not. But we have a name for it, meaning disjointed words. Our scholars today still are wrestling with these disjointed words because they do not have the linguistic ability behind them for them to understand about Alif, Lam, Ra, the Ra part in it, Rahim, and Rahman. They don't understand about the Ra. See, and so we have this, and it's there, brothers and sisters. It's there, and again, the linguistics is always takes you over the hump. It gets you to have a better understanding about what Subhanahu wa ta'ala, who he is, and what he's governed, and what he gave us. Because he's always interested in trying to help us to purify our soul, because he wants us to go to the heavens. He wants us to purify our souls. This is why we have the religion of Islam. Islam is not a religion to fight. That's not what it means. It means peace. It means peace and submission. So our ancestors tackled with this. Our ancestors had 42 confessions that you had to recite in order for you to purify your ka and ba. 42 confessions to help you, guide you. For us, we have the Quran today, and we have the Sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ to help us, to guide us, to purify our spirit and our soul. I'm hoping I'm getting to you, brothers and sisters, and you understand this. And when you look, this here, brothers and sisters, is a style of writing. Those who do not understand the Arabic language, but when you recite the Quran, we have terms and we have emphasis placed upon words and so forth and so on. This particular surah, Al-Shams, is very beautiful. All Muslims should recite it, memorize it, and recite it, and regard its oath and understand the tafsir of it. I gave you some of this today. And when Subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this to our Prophet ﷺ, is so melodic. Even in the English language, it's even melodic. See? So you have this, brothers and sisters, today from me, your brother. And I have another episode talking about the Middle Kingdom of Kempt. But I had to get you this because I want you to understand that your brothers in ancient Egypt were spoken to by Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave a language that was called the language of God, language of Ra. He gave something to our most learned men. They call it the hymn of Ra. And it's Tawheed, oneness of God. So you have this. And I'm hoping now, brothers and sisters, that you have this version of this episode about ancient Kept, and that is profound to you. And you can go back and review this again. I'm always pretty long, you know that, but I do this for a reason. And you pick out the points that you need in it to help you to understand what I'm talking about. But being made a rest assured, the Quranic Arabic that was spoken, many of the Sahaba had a hard time understanding it. They had to get the Prophet to help them to understand they spoke Arabic. But there was things in it that it was too profound for them. Same way with the Mdw Ntr was given to learned men, wise men, righteous men, and they had to teach it to the people. He was given this, Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this to Muhammad alayhi salam. He had to teach it to us, because it came from him to a prophet. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to one prophet. We don't know. Allah alam. I don't know who took it. They said that many of the scribes took knowledge. I don't know, but they wrote it in a hymn. And they had a book that's off this chart talking to sciences and everything else, called a book by fourth day by night, by coming by day and night. And it's very interesting. So brothers and sisters, you have this, and you look at this again here. I will close. When you use the name Ra, meaning Subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ra means one who's constructed the sun and the sky, not follow it. The one who's constructed it, who made it. When you see in the hieroglyphics the names of kings with the name Ra, that means the devotion, love and devotion to Ra, Subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does it mean? You see Ra Shabaka, my last name, my ancestor, Shabaka. You see the places the Subhanahu wa ta'ala said that you talking about honorable places, sacred places of worship that purifies the Ka and Ba. We understand it in Mdw Ntr. He called Baka, means Mecca today, and the structure that you go around and you worship at, which purifies the spirit and the soul, is called the Kaaba. The Kaaba. Brothers and sisters, I'm hoping that you got something out of this today. And it's a very profound thing for me. It gives me a deeper insight into Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also gave me a deeper insight to our ancestor brothers too. They were spoken to. They were given this. So I'll leave you with that. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.